Distracted driving is a huge problem in our day. The main problem with distracted driving is definitely texting and driving. With the use of cell phones being at an all-time high, people are also using cell phones while operating a motor vehicle, and that is extremely dangerous. This problem is extremely prevalent with teenagers, especially getting their license and thinking that they're able to operate a motor vehicle while also being able to use their cell phone device. This is extremely untrue, and there's many statistics that back up that actually driving while texting is more dangerous and leads to more deaths in America than drunk driving, which was our main focal problem about 2 decades ago, when we would have tons of commercials and propaganda about drinking and driving and the effects it has. But now we don't have the same effects on texting and driving. And I'm going to show you on why this is actually a big problem in the US. Distracted driving is a huge problem in our current day. The main problem with this is actually the use of texting and driving. That's the biggest form of distraction we have. Our cell phones are around us 24/7. We use them 24/7 for everything. So it makes sense that when we're on the road, we also use our cell phones. But there's a big problem with this, and that is that cell phone texting and driving is actually the worst form of distracted driving we have statistically. It's worse than drunk driving. It's worse than talking to people in the car and driving, which is also dangerous. But texting and driving is actually statistically the worst for America, and it leads to the most deaths. And it just needs to be talked about and stopped because it's very dangerous. The reason why texting and driving is the worst type of distracted driving is because just the amount of distractions a cell phone brings. You gotta take it out, you gotta look at it, you gotta unlock your phone, and then you gotta start typing, right? So one hand's on the steering wheel, and then one hand's on your phone typing. It's extremely dangerous. You're using a visual, you're using cognitive, and you're using your touch. You're taking two hands off the wheel, you're taking both eyes off the road to look at a phone, and then with one hand, you're typing coherent messages to someone, and then you're getting messages back. And then you're also typing messages again to them. So you have to process what the person's saying that responds to you, think of a response, and type up a response, all while the other hand is operating a motor vehicle. And if you're going on a highway, you're going 60, 70 miles per hour. You got cars around you going 67 miles per hour. And you're doing all this while operating a speed that if you did crash, you statistically are going to either be, even at 35, 40 miles per hour, which is where I was going, it's still really hard to react in an appropriate time going that speed and trying to think, okay, I gotta brake, I gotta turn, I gotta do all these things while also texting. So ever since that day, I've never ever texted and driven again. There are ways that you can still text, and drive in a much more safer way that a lot of cars have started to incorporate, and we will talk about those. So I'll give a story about when I was actually doing this. I used to drive a white 2016 Mazda 6. I love the car. And I was leaving, and I had my cat in my car. And I was leaving, and I was going to the vet, and our vet's actually like pretty near our neighborhood, so I didn't have to go very far. So I was driving, I went on this long road we had before we exit our neighborhood, and I got a text message. So like I was going like 35 miles per hour. It wasn't very fast. And I was driving, and the way our neighborhood worked was one lane was going this way, and then one lane was coming this way. So it was just a 2-lane neighborhood, like most neighborhoods are. So I was on the road that was going this way. What I didn't notice was a car was coming this way. So the car that was actually coming this way was actually on the wrong side. So I didn't notice that because I was on my phone. And a lot of time when we're on our phone, for some reason we look down, which doesn't make any sense, but I was on my phone, and I look up, and the car that was on the wrong side was like this close to my car. So my first instinct was to, move out of the way. So I moved out of the way. I ended up on the curb of my neighborhood, of a person's driveway. I ended up on the curb, and those big light posts you guys see in the neighborhood, the ones that light up a neighborhood, I hit, and it fell on my car. And it shattered my car and totaled I had to go to the hospital afterwards. My cat was thankfully okay. But ever since then, I realized how fast it actually comes at when you're texting and driving. Like, it's split seconds reaction, because at that speed, even at 35, 40 miles per hour, which is where I was going, it's still really hard to react in an appropriate time going at that speed and trying to think, okay, I gotta brake, I gotta turn, I gotta do all these things while also texting. So ever since that day, I've never ever texted and driven again. There are ways that you can still text, and drive in a much more safer way that a lot of cars have started to incorporate, and we will talk about those. So, how do we avoid texting and driving? Okay, so habits are hard to change. So if we're gonna use our phones every day at home, it's really hard to not use them on the road. But there's things you can do that make it a little easier and a lot safer. One is a lot of cars now have some sort of voice recognition feature. So they have a feature where it's like, hypothetically, it's you push a little button and you can tell your car to send a message. Or if your car does have something called CarPlay, you basically plug your phone into the car and your screen is projected on your infotainment center on your car. And it's very easy to message people and all that in a safe way because all you gotta do is just use your voice. So you don't gotta take your eyes off the road. You don't gotta look around. You're just talking, which is really easy to do. Another thing you can do is just not do it. If you're going on short little trips, you can turn your phone on Do Not Disturb while driving, and that pretty much indicates that when you're going a certain speed, your phone will automatically turn on Do Not Disturb, so you won't get any dings, you won't get any text messages or notifications, so you don't have any urge to look at your phone. Another thing you can do is start using stops frequently. You need to realize when it's appropriate and not. If you're on a highway going down, you should not be using your phone. If you're at a red light, it might be okay to send a quick message, but it's not okay to use your driving when you're actually moving. And there's a lot of numbers that back this up. So for instance, texting and driving actually leads to 1 in 4 of all the accidents in the US, which is pretty crazy if you really think about it. 1 in 4 of all accidents in the US are caused by texting and driving. Texting and driving is crazy because 1 in 5 of accidents that ends up being fatal are actually caused by a person driving a motor vehicle who is texting and driving, hitting someone that's not even driving. So hitting someone that's on a bike, hitting someone that's on that's just walking, going for a run. Maybe they're walking their dog. That's the most common way people die in fatal car accidents, and it's very prevalent in teenagers. And that it's just such a burden to put on someone's life. Even now, the most common reason for a teenager's death is accidents. It's above suicide, it's above cancer, any type of diseases, it's still accidents. And that's ridiculous to me because we emphasize, teenagers that do this, they're fresh out of driving school. So they're a year or two outside of driving school. They just realized they just took their test. The test talks about safety precautions and they still don't follow it. So it's something that needs to be addressed. We need to start utilizing our technology that we do have in cars. If we don't have technology, we need to live with the fact that we don't have to be on our phones for every single minute of the day. And that time you're driving, you don't need to be on your phone. It's actually really nice to drive without your phone. Just driving in a car, maybe have the radio playing or have your music preset before you start going. Make a playlist, have the music. A lot of the time people change songs in the middle of the road. Not a good idea. Just have a preset playlist where you can just click a button and then the playlist just runs while you're driving, so you don't need to use your phone. It's just distracted driving, especially with texting, is a lot more dangerous in my opinion than you can even say drunk driving statistically, because just the ease of texting and driving. I mean, texting and driving just became illegal in some states, I think 2 years ago. And that's crazy because cell phones have been on the rise since 2015. So it's I think the problem with texting and driving is it's much more, people think it'll never happen to them until it happens to them. And that's a bad mindset to have, because once it happens to you, it might be too late. You might have just ended up costing someone else their life just by you wanting to respond to someone who you could have responded to when you get to your destination successfully.